Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Let's Talk About It. This is Susan Johnson, and today I'm here with some very special guests. And part of the reason I'm here with some very special guests is because we had our United States Senator here, Chris Murphy, talking about agricultural issues, which also brought in some wonderful people to talk about Connecticut's agricultural issues. And I've been very privileged and honored to have our Commissioner, Brian Hurlbert, who's the Commissioner of Agriculture for the state of Connecticut. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for joining us for today's event with Senator Murphy. I think it's, we were talking on the way in, it's really remarkable that we had our United States Senator here in Windham, that we were at CLIC, which does an amazing job for the community, and we're talking about agriculture in an urban area. You know, how fun is that? And that is Connecticut. And so this is a great way to highlight, what Connecticut agriculture is, can be, and how it ties in everywhere. So thank you for having us here.
Oh, I'm so thrilled. And I also have the Dean of Agriculture, Dean Chambly, and he is here to also talk about all the wonderful things that have been occurring at the University of Connecticut. And he joined our United States Senator and our Commissioner, and Senator Flexer was there as well, and Mayor DeVivo too. So we had a full group of people there listening to the farmers from all over the state of Connecticut. So welcome, Dean, to our show.
Thank you so much, Susan, for having me on your show here. And it has been a privilege to be a part of conversation this morning. Issues that we are talking about are so near and dear to what we do in our College of Agriculture, Health and Natural Resources at UConn, whether it's workforce development, doing research to address issues related to food, agriculture, health, nutrition, sustainability, are taking research results through our cooperative extension system to help the residents of Connecticut. These issues are very important to us.
Excellent, excellent. And you can tell just from our beginning that we had quite a robust discussion on agricultural issues. And so one of the things I think we're all in agreement on, and I know Senator Murphy is very, very interested in, is our farm to school issues. So we'll start off with our Commissioner Hurlbert, a little bit about farm to school.
Yeah, well, the farm to school programs are amazing because they connect local students with agriculture and give them a reason to think about, where did that apple come from? Where did this milk in this carton come from? Food isn't grown on a tray and distributed, in a cafeteria. And so getting them to think, getting the students to think about this is really important, because we want to educate and highlight the role agriculture has, and hopefully get some of those students into Dean Chambly's programs over at UConn. But it's also, not only is it important for the students to make sure they understand where their food comes from, but it's really important for Connecticut farmers to have access to a marketplace, have that baseline stable funding to provide food, to make sure that they their business is set up to be strong, and that they can then be in other areas. They can support staff at farmers markets. They can invest in their operation. They can take a loan out because they can demonstrate to a bank that they have a guaranteed income stream. So the Farm to School program is an amazing program, partnering with the legislature. The last two state budgets made funding available through the Connecticut Grown for Connecticut Kids School Grant. And we kind of were wondering, how big of a program will this be? We had $500,000 in 2021, $250,000 in 2021, $500,000 in 2022. And I was like, well, how much are we going to see? And each year we had requests for over $1 million in programming. And so that demonstrates the level of desire from Connecticut schools to put farm to school programming in the classroom, in their cafeteria, and to get students out to Connecticut farms for a field trip. That to me says there's this great opportunity out there that we need to continue to support. And we use ARPA dollars, federal dollars that were given to the state for this purpose, and I think it was a great investment in communities.
Yes, ARPA, please.
American Rescue Plan Act, which were part of the COVID response dollars to support states and communities dealing with the pandemic and the repercussions from it. I'm sorry, I should use less acronyms.
That's okay. We're familiar with that, and I always ask people to please explain.
Yes.
So that's excellent. Thank you for that. And so to follow up on Farm to School, Dean Chambly, tell us a little bit about how University of Connecticut also participates in making sure that we have a robust agricultural economy here in Connecticut.
That's a really good question, and we are really privileged to be a strong partner to support agricultural economy in Connecticut. It's more than $4.5 billion industry, and our farmers who are working very hard on day in and day out basis to produce good quality, healthy food that supports not just the residents of Connecticut but beyond. We work with them closely in three separate areas. We are educating our students, and that education starts at a very, very early stage. Commissioner talked about farm to school program. We work with the youth through 4-H programs where we are creating interest in them, not only food and agriculture and how agriculture is done and how food is produced, but imparting to them on critical skills that will be needed to succeed in whatever career that they choose. Through 4-H programming, we also create interest in STEM education, for example, in them, and many of them end up at UConn for their university education. But to us, it doesn't matter whether they come to UConn or any other university. We want them to be prepared to succeed in their career paths, whatever that may be for them.
I think that workforce development is something that is critical to making sure that we continue agricultural economics here in Connecticut. And I think that that is something that we really need to develop. One thing, in my own opinion, because I come from a long line of farmers, is that we really, farmers must know a little bit of everything and be able to manage so many different things, whether it's mechanics, whether it's how the food is grown, whether it's economics, whether it's workforce development. A little bit more, Dean, about the workforce development. I think that we're thinking in those lines.
Absolutely. So when you look at the food and agricultural industry and you look at the demand for trained workforce, nationwide, we need about 60,000 graduates coming out from our type of colleges and programs. What we are producing is somewhere between 40 to 45,000 graduates nationwide. In our own college, we have about 2,100 undergraduate students and another 500 graduate students. So there is a big shortage of workforce that is being developed right now, and that difference of 15 to 20,000 trained students, it gets compounded over time period. What we are also hearing through our stakeholders, through our interactions, for example, with the greenhouse growers, that they need students who are trained in this area to be able to operate the greenhouses, to be able to program computers that control the different sensors and equipments that go in these greenhouses. That demand is only going to increase in future, and pressure on us is now and will only increase in future to be able to produce these graduates who will sustain our agricultural and food economy.
Well, and if I could jump in on that, we were we did a visit at a greenhouse operation with Congressman Courtney not too long ago. We were talking to the owner operator, and the congressman asked, how is it getting people to work here? Do you have enough staff? And he goes, it's the number one challenge we have is getting staff in here. He's one of the largest greenhouse growers in the state and in the nation, so this is a major operation for us. And he goes, but I don't necessarily need anybody who touches the soil anymore. He goes, I need equipment operators, I need computer programmers, I need haulers, I need people who can work machinery. It's not about actually planting and cultivating crops necessarily. It's about all the other things that need to get done. So engineering, mechanics, operations, all of those pieces are really important. And those all exist, and people are trained to do all those things outside of agriculture. But there's a way to bring those skill sets into agriculture. And the dean mentioned, we're behind 15 to 20,000 people across the nation. That's a big problem really quickly, and we're seeing part of that. And we saw that during COVID. The impacts of what happens when employees aren't there and can't do the job that they're being asked of. That means the product doesn't get shipped into the state. There's nobody there to offload it from the truck that entered the warehouse. There's nobody to put it on the shelves for people to access it. So this is a really important problem that a lot of people are talking about. But I can't stress enough how important it is that we have the College of Ag, Health, and Natural Resources in state. We have Yukon Extension going out there, 4-H, FFA, trying to cultivate the next round of agricultural leaders. And it doesn't have to be that they own a farm and till the ground. It could be that they're doing all these other jobs in agriculture.
Well, I just want to thank you for that, and I want to just put a fine point on that, because when you and I served in the House together, Commissioner, I learned something that I was quite stunned to find out, and that is we only have about 3 days of food here. And so tell us a little bit about that emergency situation that we might find ourselves in, which is more front and center of mind to most people now, since we've been through the pandemic, since we've seen the empty shelves. Tell us about that.
Well, that's a great stat, that we only have 3 days of perishable food this side of the Hudson River. And so if anything happens to the bridges across the Hudson River, we have a food security issue in Connecticut, in Massachusetts, across New England. And so it's really important that we continue to invest and support Connecticut growers, because that is our foundational baseline against anything that happens at the Hudson River. So investing in our Connecticut farms, invests in food security, invests in food system development. All of those investments mean that when you and I or our families go to the grocery store or the farmer's market or a farm stand, that there will be product there that we can use and we can purchase. Without any of that system, or if any of that system falls apart, which we saw during the pandemic, there's going to be less food availability. There's going to be real challenges in growing those crops. And so we all have to be thinking about, why is this important? Why is it important to support a farmer's market? Because that business is going to be really important for our future in the state.
Yes, please.
So
Dean.
if I may add to
Yes.
some of the excellent points made by the Commissioner, the benefits of local investment goes beyond just addressing the 3 days crisis that may strike us. Also, Connecticut is located strategically in an area where there are 30 million people who have to eat 2 to 3 times a day. And as the demand for locally grown food increases every day, we are really at a prime spot where we can become the supplier of fresh food and agricultural products and produce to these 30 million people in the Boston and New York City metropolitan area. And rather than bringing some of that food from long distances in West, where there is a bigger carbon footprint of transporting that food, we can reduce that and also help with addressing the climate change issues, because now you're not transporting fresh vegetables and fruits and produce to long distances.
That is such an excellent point, and it's something that I think gets lost for most of us. When we go to the supermarket, when we look at the fresh food, we're hoping that it's from the local area. And of course, the climate change has had a huge impact on that. Tell us how the university is dealing with the issues of climate change and how it's affecting the environment, and what it could do to the health if we don't do a careful job of analyzing it and producing students that understand the climate change issue.
So that is a really excellent issue, and let me start with some background here about what we are going through. Climate change is happening everywhere, but where we are located in Connecticut and in New England and Northeast is warming faster than rest of the country. And even within a year, when we look at how it is warming at different time of the year, our winters are warming 3 times faster than the summer. We have seen some of that in the mild winter we have had this year. And what it means to agriculture and food production, for example, this will bring new disease and pest pressures to our farmers. They will have to figure out how to deal with some of the diseases that may not have been there before. It's not only to the food production, but also in our forestries and our both natural and managed forests. There will be new diseases that will be coming that we will have to figure out how to deal with that. When it comes to the health, mild winter, for example, can create a bigger tick problem in the summertime. And we live in an area where the tick-borne diseases are rampant. And so the climate change is going to have an impact on every aspect of it. What we are doing in our college is looking at these aspects, what we need to do to transition to climate-smart agriculture, address the disease and pest problems in crops that we grow, what we need to do to ensure the sustainability in our landscape and make sure that the water quality, for example, is not impacted negatively, how we can address the human and animal health issues. For example, with the warming temperatures, the milk production goes down. So what we need to do to address that, it's an important part of Connecticut economy. These are the issues that our faculty and researchers are looking at. These are the issues that our extension faculty are then taking the results from our research and directly helping our farmers and stakeholders and residents of Connecticut.
And I think that probably fits in with a lot of what Commissioner Hurlburt's doing with public investment in terms of how you're working on these same issues, but in a little bit different way.
Well, and we recently rolled out and will be announcing the awards for the Climate Smart Ag and Forestry Grant Program that was funded last year in the state budget to the tune of $7 million. I thought $7 million was a lot of money in this space for the state, and I was wondering how we were going to invest all of that across the farms. We opened up the application period in December. We closed it in January. We had 78 applications for $55 million in projects. So the problem that I thought I was going to have, which was that we weren't going to be able to spend all the money this fiscal year, turned into a very different problem of we're going to make a lot of people unhappy that we weren't able to invest in their project. I want to acknowledge the dean and his team for participating and helping us get that program set up. Our partners at the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, we really took a holistic approach of, how can we use these dollars wisely. And so, the message that I received from that is that Connecticut farmers, forest owners, landowners want to invest in climate smart practices. There's a desire out there. They need that initial help to get through the first couple stages of it. And that's where our public investment dollars can help them through. We can help them purchase the next piece of equipment. We can help manage the risk, because as the dean said, his extension agents will take that research and apply it. This isn't a white paper that somebody said, hey, go read this and, good luck figuring it out. UConn Extension has people in every community that says, let me help you put this into practice on your farm. That's really important to make sure that knowledge transfer happens. So we're going to invest in those projects. I'm hopeful that we'll have the opportunity to continue to invest in those projects. But it's another way that we can use public dollars to make sure that we're getting outcomes that benefit not only the small businesses, but as the dean was mentioning, water runoff and retention, soil health, carbon sink, the opportunity for green spaces and reduce the number of blacktop areas, and so reducing the heat in our cities and towns. Those are all things that we can invest in through the Climate Smart Ag and Forestry Grant Program. That isn't just a farm buying a new tractor. It's a lot of public benefits, and so we have to think about the broader implications and benefits that we have when we make these investments in these individual wards. Same with our farm to school program. That's a public investment that we're investing in the outcome of that student's health, but we're also investing in the outcome of that farm's revenue and positive interaction with the community. So those are ways that we can use these dollars for more than just business offsets.
I just want to add something to the Farm to School program, because It's something that, I was really impressed with when I went to last year, the government ideas at Wyndham High for things that they could do. And we're renovating the Wyndham High School is new. And one of the things that the students decided that they wanted to have is to be able to do some agricultural things at Wyndham High. And I thought this is great because it's something that I think when we're in this area of the state, we have room for agriculture. We have a state that really is very, very charming, and part of the charm that we have here in Connecticut has to do with agriculture, has to do with the founding of the University of Connecticut being an agricultural university. So it has to do with who we are as a state, and we really don't want to change that. We really want to make sure that we have that here for the security, for the health of the people, but also just to maintain the beauty and the charm of who we are and what kind of a state we are. So I want to just follow up on Commissioner's statement, Dean, about the fact that you have people stationed in every town to help farmers. If you could, maybe tell us a little bit more about that in your school.
So, Smith-Lever Act that was created in 1914, I believe, it created a program nationwide to establish cooperative extension system. And what cooperative extension system does is it takes the research that gets conducted at the universities to directly benefit the residents and citizens of the state. So through 10 extension offices that we have got located throughout Connecticut, our extension faculty, many of them are directly engaged in generating new knowledge through basic and applied research. And all of them take that new knowledge that is generated through the state on problems that are relevant to Connecticut, problems that our residents are facing on a day in and day out basis. These problems relate to food and agriculture, health, environment, sustainability. And when I say health, it's the health of humans, animals, and health of environment, all those things considered together. And create projects to help our residents address their questions. So someone may be facing an issue of how much nutrient or how much animal manure can I apply on my field. Our extension folks can go and work with them closely to make that determination. Someone may have a question about a disease on their vegetable farm. Our extension folks will go take a look at it. They will work together with the farmer to help address what needs to be done so that there is no economic loss to the farmer. And through these 10 extension offices, I'm proud to say that we serve each one of 169 cities and towns in Connecticut. And we have at least 7 different projects in any one of these communities, to as many as more than 30 projects.
That's really fascinating. I know that it would be really helpful maybe for everyone, for all the towns to publish how to reach the extension division. And maybe there's, we could do some more outreach. I'm sure you're already connected with those who are farmers, but it might be helpful for people who are thinking of farming, that sort of thing, to be able to do some more connection, maybe through the commissioner's website as well, but maybe both at the university's website, the commissioner's website, through 4-H, through these other places where you're connecting with people who are interested in agriculture, doing agriculture. It might be good to spread more of the word, to get the people more involved in where they're getting their food, how they're getting their food, the fact that we really need to support local farming. That is some of the things that I'm thinking of. Is there something that we could say on the air right now that might put people in connection with that program?
So one of the easiest things is to get to our website, Connor, CAHNR.UConn.edu, and look at what we do, look at our strategic priorities in the areas that we have been talking about today, and reach out to us. It's not just the farmers. You can be any resident, and you may want to know what is the soil quality in your front yard or backyard. We have got a lab where you can send your soil sample. We will do the analysis for you, and we will let you know about what is the health of your soil and what needs to be done. You may have an ornamental plant and the leaves may be curling and you don't know what it is. You can send it to the home and garden center where we can do the diagnostics for the diseases, and through the plant diagnostic lab we can tell you what is the disease and what needs to be done to address that. So our programs literally goes to everyone in the state, and farmers and producers are a big part of it, but it includes everyone.
You know, he's just given me an idea because I'm the chairman of Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission, and soil is one of the things that we have to look at when we look at the perk rate for the water. And so I might be contacting the University of Connecticut on that issue. And so, Commissioner, tell us, we do have these, we were here as you started out in the beginning of our show saying how we're at CLIC, which is here in Wyndham. But we're here talking about agriculture in an urban area. And so tell us a little bit about the New Beginning Urban Farm.
Yeah, and this is a really exciting place, and the dean shares my enthusiasm for spreading agriculture where it's not traditionally been found, and supporting it in those areas. So we've done and retooled our programs at the agency to be more responsive to new and beginning farmers, recognizing that people who are on their fourth or fifth generation of farms in the family, they have a different background. They have a different understanding and set of knowledge, and that's great. And we want those people to be successful as well. But that new incoming farmer, whether it be a second career person, a veteran who's come off their commitment to the services, or somebody who's graduated high school or college, and says, "This is how I want to, this is what I want to make my career in." It's a very expensive small business to start, right? You need a lot of land. You can't rent a storefront. You need a lot of land. You need equipment. You need employees. You need to be able to find marketplaces and do marketing. As you mentioned earlier, you need to be, a mechanic. You need to be, a soil scientist. You need to be, able to propagate your crops. So all of those things are really important, and they might have some of the skill set, and they definitely have the passion. So how can we invest to make sure that they can be successful? And so we've created some programs that are direct investments for new and beginning farmers. One of them was really simple. We took a program that we already had, the Farm Transition Grant, and we created a micro grant, a new and beginning farmer award category. It was really hard for somebody to apply for a $4,000 piece of equipment when they're competing against somebody who's applying for a $44,000 piece of equipment. Those applications kind of got left to the side. So we created a whole new separate category for them. So they're only competing against similar projects in similar size and scale. I call it $1 million program because that $5,000 investment is like $1 million investment to these new and beginning farmers, because they wouldn't get it otherwise. If they're done with their personal investment, they might have maxed out. They might have maxed out with their family investment. They're not ready for a commercial or a USDA loan, but they're willing to keep growing and keep trying. And so that $5,000 investment is the first way we can support them to get them ready to continue to grow through the course of their business life. The other piece of this is that a lot of these new and beginning farms are happening in urban areas. And so how do we support bringing more production agriculture more locally, expose more people to it, get more access to it, but then by supporting this in urban communities. And so we've invested and done programming with the Department of Agriculture, with the College of Ag, to share out, these are the tricks, the tools, the information you need to know in order to be successful as an urban farm. And we're doing investments in there. And so what I think was really important for Senator Murphy to hear today at the roundtable that we just came from was that the tools that USDA has, that the Farm Bill authorizes, are really tools that were designed 15, 20, 30, 70 years ago. They're not the greatest fit anymore to the agriculture that we see popping up, and they're not the greatest fit for Connecticut agriculture. And so if he can work on providing flexibility and helping those urban farms, more support to new and beginning farmers, then we will see the average age of the farmers, which is 58 years old in America, drop, because we'll be bringing more younger people in at a more, at a faster rate than we're having people age out. And that's really important if we care about having food on our table.
It certainly is, and I just want to kind of tie that in with the fact that we have climate change and we have new methodologies of farming, like you were talking about greenhouse farming, and every so often I see people who want to grow in water and aqua
Hydroponic,
farming.
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, because I think it's a part of the changing environment that we have in farming, and I don't think we think about it. We think about agriculture with a lot of soil and that sort of thing, which it is, but it also has some of this other aspect to it.
Well, and the examples I used in urban farming, were outdoor, soil production, but you could certainly take, especially in a community like this, take an old warehouse building or an old factory building and install hydroponic production there. You can have, LED lighting as the source of light, the water circulation through there. And so you can take that building that may be underutilized or vacant and turn it into a production farm. And so that's a really neat way. And we were down, the Lieutenant Governor and I visited Nourish in Bridgeport, and they're in an old warehouse. They have tower gardens that they're growing leafy greens, cucumbers, tomatoes on, and a storage container farm in their parking lot. So they don't have any soil in their farm at all, and yet they're a production farm. What's really interesting, Reverend Sarah is the woman who runs this amazing operation, is that they started just distributing this as part of their food pantry network. Because they started bringing in more and expanding their production, they were able to hire people. And she has employees at Nourish that started out receiving free food through the pantry, who are now paid employees who are providing food for their community. I mean, that's what we can do and how transformational these things can be in different communities. And I think that's a great story to share.
I think that's fabulous, and I just wanted to say I think we have a lot of places like that left in our area, and it would be really nice to be able to maybe create an assessment of how many places that we have that we could do that with, and maybe we'll try and do a study group next session on that
Sure.
on that issue. Dean, what do you think about hydroponic farming?
So one of the benefits that controlled environment agriculture and hydroponic farming brings, and that it enables us to produce fresh produce in urban areas. And many of these urban areas are traditionally food deserts, where people may not have access to quality, nutritious, fresh food. And by putting this urban agriculture at those locations, we are addressing a very important health issue and health disparities that exist in these communities. So it is not only helping us grow food locally, but also grow in the areas where it is very important, where people may not have access to those quality fresh food products easily, because they may not have cars to be able to drive to a grocery store that may be several miles away. Other benefits that this controlled environment agriculture brings is it reduces the pressure from disease and pests that I talked about because of the climate change, since you are growing these plants in a controlled environment. It reduces the input that is going. So water gets circulated, the nutrients get circulated. You're not wasting anything. And the plants are growing much more efficiently, as well as it increases the growing period. So we are not dependent on 140 days of summer where everything has to grow. It can grow year round. And so instead of having just one harvesting of any crop, now you can have multiple throughout the year. And so it increases the economic return to the farmers.
Excellent. And that is something I've always, now I know a little bit more about hydroponic farming and the fact that this is something that really is coming, I think, will be something we'll be able to use more and more as we move forward with climate change and with fast expanding, less available land, but more housing, and trying to make sure we get rid of the food deserts that we have. One of the things that really caught my attention and with Senator Murphy is his concerns about the SNAP benefits. And the SNAP, that's the special nutrition programs that are available for low-income people, and subsidies to people who have low incomes, trying to make sure that we have those subsidies continued. I mean, right now we've just noticed that after the pandemic, we're just going down. The subsidies are being limited, and that's going to hurt a lot of people. But also Congress, in the House of Representatives in Congress, now that's Republican-led, and I don't mean to be political, but they are wanting to even reduce the SNAP benefit even more. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about that, Commissioner.
Well, when we think about the investment that we make through SNAP, we've got to think about the families that we're feeding. Whether it be the free and reduced lunch meals that were happening during the pandemic that the legislature and the governor just extended. Those are, we're investing in people's health. We're giving them access to nutrition. And so making sure that the SNAP program is available to the needs of these families. Because we're not, if families don't have those dollars, they can't supplement them somewhere else. And so what ends up happening is the kids go without the food. And that's a real problem, right? You can't be a good learner and well behaved in the classroom if you're hungry. That's it's that simple. And so we can't expect that we're going to have great students and great outcomes if we don't have kids who have the energy necessary to be good learners, to stay focused in the classroom. One of the, we've been talking about public investment a couple times here, and one of the things that we did with our, with some of the federal dollars that came through is we did a SNAP doubling program across the state. So SNAP doubling at farmers markets. So if you're on SNAP, you can go to about the 3 dozen farmers markets in the state, run your SNAP card for $10 and get $20 worth of purchasing power. So now, you're at a farmer's market. So the farmer benefits, right? Because now that person's spending twice as much money as they would have. So that I'm more likely to go to that market that offers SNAP doubling because I know people are going to be able to purchase. And me as a family or an individual who's trying to feed my family, I'm extending my limited SNAP dollars. And I'm buying great food, right? We're talking about nutritious, whole foods, vegetables, fruits, meats. When you're on SNAP, a lot of the decision comes into the cheapest calorie affordable, right? That's kind of how you have to break it down. So it's not about quality, it's about quantity. And so this changes that dynamic because we extend the purchasing power and we give you direct access to fruits and vegetables and local foods. So it's really good for you as an individual, for your health. It's really good for that farm because they know they have a market. And as the dean was saying, food deserts, we can put these farmers markets with SNAP doubling or farmers market nutrition programs into areas that don't have any other access to this sort of quality of food. And so that's, a great use of public dollars. And I know we could speak on all these things for about 90 hours, nonstop. But I really appreciate, Representative, that you took the time today to say, let's use this hour of time to talk about agriculture, food, the Farm Bill, and how it impacts the members of this community. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you so much, Commissioner, and thank you so much, Dean. So I'm going to start with Dean Chowbey, and just we've got about a minute and a half. Just a little summary from you about UConn, and then we'll finish up with our Commissioner.
So in our College of Agriculture, Health and Natural Resources, we are working hard to address 5 broad issues affecting the state and our residents. And those are, what can we do to ensure sustainable agriculture and food production in the state? Number 2, what we can do to ensure health and well-being locally, regionally, and globally. And health and well-being is for health of humans, animals, and environment. What can we do to make sure we have sustainable landscapes? What can we do to help our citizens and residents prepare for climate change impacts and mitigate to the negative impacts. And then fifth one is how do we do all that while ensuring diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice in everything that we do. So these are the issues that we are very proud to be working on. I am very thankful for the strong partnership we have with Commissioner Hulbert and Connecticut Department of Ag, and I am very excited to keep working on these issues.
Thank you so much, Dean. Commissioner?
I'll just wrap up with saying, again, thank you for the opportunity. And the question that I ask myself every day when we go through our programs, because we can kind of just be on the run of the mill. Why are we doing this? Why does this matter? Why does this matter to the people of the state? Why does this matter to the constituents we're trying to serve? Not only do we have 5,500 farms in Connecticut, they generate $4 billion worth of economic impact. They employ 22,000 residents across the state. Those are big numbers. But they also produce food and goods that we need to be sustainable. And we can help them adapt climate smart technologies, practices. We can help make sure that Connecticut's residents know where food is. We can help Connecticut residents afford more Connecticut grown food. Those are all great things to think about on a daily basis. Sometimes it's daunting, but the opportunity to share some of what we've been doing over the past couple of years with you today is just a great use of our time. So thank you.
Well, thank you both for being here on Let's Talk About It. This is Susan Johnson. I can't thank our Commissioner Hulbert and our Dean Chowbey enough for being here on Let's Talk About It. See you next week.